Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of impeccable wisdom. Let's discuss what sodium and potassium ratio itself. The extracellular product is the sodium ions or sodium atoms, and the intracellular it's the potassium atoms or potassium ions. Let me tell you, let's start from the very beginning. Amrit, nectar, ambrosia, pure water is one content which is very essential for biological life by and large. And this is something which is known from the very beginning. Water represents the solvent divine nature, and it is 61.803% or Divyank ratio. And there are 5 states of the water: ice, liquid, fire, air, element. There could be 10 states of both solid and suksham sarira. So from that point of view, we started with water the last time, which is the nectar, and that is the nectar which also works in functioning of the atoms also in the process. I think that is a statement which I am trying to make very clear in this. In sodium and potassium, they are effective only in ionic form in the presence of water. Hydrolysis, rehydration is the process which I have already explained. This is going to make you understand why sodium and potassium, which are two elements which are absolutely essential for life, can function better only in the presence of water, otherwise they are just solid elements. Now come to the question of descent of elements. I have already made it clear. The gods and goddesses of Vedas represent the nature of different elements of divine nature. That's the reason particularly Rig Veda is only focused on elements and elements only. And Indra is the king of gods and is the water and rainwater. So it's the water which brings out everything from the cosmos to the universe. With thunder, lightning and rain, all the essential elements came down from the cosmos to the ocean, from mountain, streams, rivers to the ocean. And biological life started in the warm waters of ocean. Without water, saline water, ocean, it wouldn't have started as a unicellular organism. And over a period from unicellular become multicellular, and human being the best object of the universe who is in tune with everything in the universe. And all the requirement of the body, unicellular to the multicellular, in the beginning stage came from the water and went to the water. But one thing hasn't changed when life moved from water of the ocean to the territorial part. Ocean could not be brought. So the water was brought as an extracellular fluid to do the same purpose which ocean does. So extracellular fluid is as identical with ocean water what was in the beginning. Unfortunately, it is too salty now. It wasn't very salty at that given moment of time. And that's how the beginning of Sagar Manthan or Samudra Manthan churning started, when we started recovering everything step by step from the ocean. When finally the object was to get the water, pure water, in form without any ingredient of anything which could be defective. Purification of water on the earth has been the process of research even today. We are trying our different processes to purify the water to 100% purity, eliminating all the things. It could be through the nanotechnology or other processes which are taking place. Let's not go into detail. But let's talk of the pure divine water, 100% pure, without any ingredient, absolutely fine, to be a product to be taken into consideration with respect to understanding sodium and potassium as such to start in this particular video. Now come to the question of, as I've been saying, everything in the universe design, everything object which are perfect in nature, A to Z, are designed with Divyank or Divyank ratio or Divyank sequence only. This is a picture of length and breadth of the rectangle, which is 100 into 161.8034. And ratio is the perfect golden ratio or divine ratio. Value is only this, not the one which modern mathematicians and scientists talk about it. It is not 1.618 are 1.61803397 etc etc etc, but this is the perfect is 1.618034. you are going to see that, and the value is 61.8034 and other 38.196. These are the two values which are perfect, which add up to 100, and the square of the first one 61.80 is 100 times the value of something, and this is a something which is not seen in any other ratio in the world, is something which I am trying to explain very clearly, and we are going to see the effect in this particular video and also the divine consciousness. Now come to the question, they were divine. This is particular formula of 22 by 21 to the power of 10.34419 is revealed for the first time in 2015, and this is a value which is most approximate value of the golden ratio itself. And this is what is the whole, and finally the water is only 61.80. Once we keep that in mind, everything will be understood very clearly thereafter. Now to come to the question of intracellular and extracellular fluid, which I talked about it. Intracellular fluid is the fluid within the cell. That means you have a cell, outside the cell, cell membrane, cytoplasm. Cytoplasm has a water which is inside, and outside it's extracellular, but extracellular predominantly has a sodium content and sodium ions, and inside have the potassium ions. And why sodium remains outside, potassium goes inside, and what is the divine chemistry? I am going to explain to you what is electromagnetic or electrogenic aspects of these elements, which are very, very important. Now let's start. First, the perfect fluid compartments are the human body. As I told you, human body fluid is 61.8034. That means it's a fluid or water. I would say water itself. Everything is dissolved in that. Everything else which is dissolved in that is a matter. And the matter could be 38.196. Let this be very, very clear. Human body cells also have intracellular 61.803% is water, and outside is 38.196, and solid matter is 38.1966. This is inside the cell, that is inside the body. Now let's understand few concepts which I call divine periodic table. First period, you can see on that side there are 7 periods and 18 groups. 7 period, the first period has got 2 only. Left is hydrogen, right is helium. Hydrogen is very, very powerful electromagnetic power, and entire universe, particularly human beings on earth, depend on photosynthesis only for life. The greatest energy for all the biological life on earth in the universe is hydrogen only, and is the most common object in the entire universe. Very, very potent, very powerful, and it cannot function inside unless until it comes as a bomb, and which is very disastrous. Hydrogen bombs are disastrous, and you have seen two examples, and let's take it for accepted it cannot be worked at all. Second thing, go to the right side, you come to the helium 4 or helium 2, 2 protons, 2 electrons and 2 neutrons, and that helium 4 works as the indwelling human soul within the human body, and the process we can understand the entire universe only through helium 4. And I make it very clear, anyone who is true to himself, truthfully, consciously listening to helium, that man, that woman will never make any mistake in life. He'll be like a walking, talking encyclopedia. He'll know the entire universe inside, outside very completely. That is the first line. And that is two are divine things. One is outside for all the energy which cannot get inside, and the second thing is inside, makes you understand the inside and outside both together. That is first part. Second thing, second period has got lithium on the left side. Biohydrogen is very, very powerful. It cannot mix with water. Water is disastrous. It's a very chemical as such, and it's a very powerful energy as such. and it is used in many of the things, in batteries and other things, because it has the power, but it's so electromagnetic or electrogenic that it cannot get inside the human body at all. It is not accepted as a part of the human body's concentration or contemplation or the functions as such. I think both hydrogen cannot be, lithium cannot be, but helium is there as the inner soul, as a reminder. That's it. Then of course in the second period you have carbon, nitrogen and oxygen. Those things play a very important role in formation of carbohydrates and everything in the universe. Maybe carbon and hydrogen will be methane, then oxygen as a carbon dioxide. There also divine mathematics is very, very clear. So second period is done. Lithium cannot be used, but second period on the other side is something which is neon itself. Neon has a power of 10, and you can see 2, 10, 18. That's it. So third period, sodium is on the left side, which has got 11 electrons, but when one electron goes and sodium ion has got 10 electrons, that it becomes like neon itself. So it becomes like a divine energy as such, and it remains a much more potential than potassium, and it gets inside the body, but it remains outside the cell because it's very electromagnetic, electrogenic by nature. And now come to question why it is more electrogenic. In sodium there is one electron outside, but there are 11 protons inside. So concentration will be more powerful, but when come to the potassium, it is 1 with 19. So it will be not as potent as that. First 1 into 1, hydrogen is very powerful, helium is lesser powerful, sodium is lesser powerful, and potassium even still lesser powerful. Once that is understood, you will know how electromagnetic and electrogenic process of this particular thing as a power works. So sodium ion is more powerful than potassium ions. So sodium remains outside, potassium goes inside, and that is very clear. Now come to the question divine demand. As I told you in the beginning, sodium atom has got 11 electrons, sodium ion has got 10 electrons. So 10 is like neon. Potassium has got 19 electrons, and potassium ion has got 18 electrons, which is like argon. The impeccable division, sodium and potassium ions represent inert matter again. Sodium neon, potassium argon. They function as per divine soul like a helium itself. So now you can understand only with water in presence these elements become very powerful. But let me also tell you at the same time, you have halogens before inert matter. The first halogen is fluoride with the 9, but it takes 1 from sodium and becomes 10, so it also becomes powerful. So sodium fluoride 10 plus 10, 20 is very powerful, and it is not used inside as such because it can be very destructive as such. So as a result, fluorosis is a very dangerous, is never a choice as such. Seventh thing which comes to very important role to play is chloride. Chloride has got 17, it can go to 18 and it becomes powerful. So it becomes like potassium that way, and sodium chloride is much more stable as such, not as bad as sodium fluoride. Then potassium chloride is also same thing with 18 and 1836 becomes very important. Once this chemistry is understood, we will know how these things are going to function within the human body. Now comes the question of sodium ion and potassium. As I told you, extracellular is sodium ions with water. Because they are powerful, more powerful, they need to go inside to the cell with the help of ATP, energy molecules as such. And cell membrane is separated from outside inside with a hydrophilic cell membrane with lipid bilayer. You can see the picture. So sodium is kept outside, and potassium is kept inside, and you need ATP in the process, and that's it. Now come to the question of concentration of fluid inside and outside as such. These two pictures I've shown of male and female. In females, solid element is only 45% and liquids are 55%. We will not go into details because women have more fat than water itself, and it is because of the fat content that water content is less, and it's already to the solid content as such. But as far as I am concerned, let's take a human being as such very clearly. Solid content can be 38.1966, not 40%, and water content can be 61.8034, not 60%, but very close to the values which other people, and I am talking about that. And then you can see the other part, interstitial, intravascular, blood and concentration, other thing is shown in this picture very clearly. So once this picture is understood, you know very well what is the value, and sodium and potassium remain. Now come to the question of understanding one more concept. What is there in these elements which bring out Divyank more? Let's say sodium has got 11, chloride has 17 electrons. So 17 divided by 11 is exactly close to 1.618034. That is in Divyank ratio. So sodium and chloride is into Divyank ratio is very clear. 17 divided by 11 is equivalent to that. But when it comes to sodium and potassium, it has got a different outlook. The number of protons in let's say a neuron cell has got, when sodium goes inside the cell neuron, it has to come out, and it is said that 3 elements of sodium come out and 2 of the potassium go inside. This ratio of 2 of potassium, 3 of sodium is into Divyank ratio. But let me go one thing further. If without ATP, it could be 34 molecules of sodium as such from inside will come out, and 21 molecules of potassium will go inside. Then protons of 34 sodium and 21, this is exactly into ratio of 22 by 21, is something which I want people to go find out yourself, work yourself out. I've been showing everything myself. Now keep it in mind. Work, take a slate, work. How many electrons are there in chloride? 17. Potassium? 19. Sodium? 11. 17 by 11 is this. Now exactly what comes to the potassium and chloride is 19 and 17, but the equivalent 21, that 18 as such. And once you work this out, and your number of protons in 34 in sodium and number of protons in 21 of this, if you calculate that cell and see the difference, is in 22, 21. That's the divine mathematics which I am talking about. Now coming to this part, I think by and large, I think I made one thing very clear. Most powerful electrogenic thing is hydrogen with the first periodic table. Second lesser is the lithium in the second periodic table. Little lesser is the sodium, and still lesser is the potassium as far as electrogenic concentration or contemplation or functions are concerned. I think once that is understood, you know what is divine mathematics, how the periodic table by and large understand the concept very clearly. And on the other side, most powerful divine energy is helium, perfect. Little lesser is neon, still lesser is argon, still lesser will be krypton, and thereafter. Once that is understood, also you know how things come down. But periodic table in the halogens also, when they change, they add one more electron, become very close to the inert matter, like fluoride, like neon, chloride, like argon. And once these functions are there, you know very well how you can use this chemical to become aware of your own inner self. And when you become connected this truthfully, pure vegetarian, no smoking, no drinking, nothing at all, these elements itself will tell you whether this is required. For example, too much of sodium could be very electrogenic. As a result, you lead to hypovolemia, hypotension, and more of hyperglycemia, etc. So the percentage of sodium by and large in the body should be kept to 4 grams only full day, not more, not less, because less could also be hyponatremia, could be dangerous. You low blood pressure too low, you could die, and hyper to be too high. That's one part. Come to the potassium. Again, the concentration should be within the stick which I am talking about. Too much of potassium, hyperkalemia can also kill you, and hypokalemia can also kill you. So when you know very well how much of water is required, how much is sodium is required, how much of potassium is required, how much is chloride is required, then you will lead a perfectly healthy, wealthy physical body as such. So coming to the conclusion, you can avoid diabetes by taking lesser salt. You can avoid blood pressure by taking lesser salt, but not so less that you don't even become functional. Blood pressure also is required to be maintained with water to the state that you are very conscious, super conscious as such. Too low is also bad, too high is also bad. And maintaining blood pressure of 120/74 is ideal, with the 93 and mean arterial blood pressure, which also centers around the water concentration, sodium concentration, and potassium concentration. Once these things are concerned, you can be very healthy as well as diabetes are concerned. And diabetic people also should reduce the salt content, sodium content, because for absorption of glucose from gastrointestinal system is also clubbed with sodium. Sodium and glucose work together as something. Same thing for reabsorption from the kidneys is the glucose and sodium together as such. So if you want to reduce the diabetes, cut short sodium, so absorption from gastrointestinal system will also be reduced, so will be reabsorption from kidneys. And once that is done, I think you are perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise and happy. And two commonly conditions which we face every day is the diabetes mellitus and hypertension, and both center around the concentration of water, sodium and potassium. And once this is maintained, and you know very well, because they are like divine energies within us. If helium makes us a truthful, honest person, will not make us do bad. So sodium chloride and potassium chloride as such would also give us a power to be perfectly healthy, wealthy and wise. They are just like divine energies, and that is exactly the message of this. This is how it goes. So one thing is very clear: sodium atoms are non-functional, sodium ions in the presence of water are functional, same potassium ion is not functional, potassium ion in the presence of water is functional. Once this concentration is maintained, you will have no problem. This is hardcore science, but you will need to understand step by step, maybe write it and done with it. And once this is understood, you can be perfectly healthy, wealthy, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, otherwise, when the balance of water, sodium, potassium is maintained very well within the body, outside and inside as such, and transmission is very clear. And I think that should be enough for the day. I have repeated many things just to show how to be healthy, wealthy and wise, not to fall sick and not to even die because of COVID. That is also hyponatremia. And I think that's enough. Thank you very much.